You're listening to Three Kitchens podcast, hosted by Aaron Walker and Heather Dyer.
We're home cooks, sharing our kitchen adventures with you. Let's all get inspired, cook better, and eat great food.
Welcome to another episode of Three Kitchens podcast. I'm your host, Heather Dyer, here with my co-host, Aaron Walker. Hello, Aaron.
Hello, Heather.
Today we are really excited because we have guest hosts. What we like to call guest hosts is when we have other podcasters or creatives join us to talk about their work and their shows. And also we talk about some food. So welcome to the show, the hosts of Thicc Radio, James and Tim. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. We're really looking forward to this one.
How many times have you been, not how many times, but have you been podcast guests before?
Once or twice we did, but again, some time ago. It's been a minute. It's fun to be in the hot seat.
Weird to be on the other side of this. I haven't done this too much, like been the guest. So yeah, this is, for me, this is kind of like, I'm not used to being the guest.
Well, we'll make it as painless as possible, but I totally get that. Let's start with your podcast. Tell us, what is Thicc Radio all about?
Thicc Radio is a podcast that is dedicated to, while it is dedicated to a niche community, the gainer and fetus community, it is also spreading a wider net. As we continue to grow and evolve as a show, we are including more themes of body positivity, fat in politics, fat in culture and art. And, you know, we're really beginning to build something of a community with this podcast. And it was all thanks to James's ingenuity.
Well, thank you, honey. Yeah, we are about all things plus size and all things relating to the body experience. Realistically, you know, everyone has an experience in their body where it doesn't really matter what shape or size you are. All of us feel the pressures and the influence of the world when it comes to living in a body. So really, it is a podcast for everyone, and we try our best to speak to as many different people as possible, which is really part of why we thought it would be a good idea to have you all on with us. A podcast that celebrates the joy of cooking and the freedom of expression within food, exploring a little bit of that cultural side as well, upskilling and, you know, having community with what that experience is like to try and make something happen, very much in alignment with what we're trying to do. So yeah, we do what we do. We have a lot of fun doing it.
That was a really nice description of our show too. Can we make note of that, Aaron? And maybe we have a new trailer with James.
Yeah, right?
Okay, so you made mention of a couple of words in your description, Tim, that I think are key to your show and your lived experience that might be new to other people. They were new to us when James and I met, but then I started listening and I realized there's a whole world here that I was not aware of, which Aaron and I both really love. We're just like endlessly curious about, well, everything, but like other people's experience. There's communities of people with things in common that some of us on the outside have never even knew existed, which I love. It's so fascinating. Okay, so the two words that stuck out to me was feedism and gaining or gainer. So can you tell us what those terms are about?
Well, it's pretty simple, but, you know, so a gainer is a person who engages in weight gain for sexual, emotional, psychological, or even sometimes spiritual fulfillment. There's a lot of different reasons why people choose to gain weight. And while I would say that like a pretty large chunk of our community is involved in the sexual side of it, which is why it gets branded as a fetish, James has been arguing for years now that it's actually much more of a sexuality, which I would love for you to expound on.
Sure. I mean, you know, for many of us who experience body-related desires, you know, you grow up feeling very strange about yourself. I think that's something that a lot of people experience, right? You experience some kind of desire in yourself. What mainstream culture is showing you maybe doesn't reflect that. And so you go, oh, maybe I'm weird. Maybe there's something wrong here. And then you discover online spaces, or you're able to go into a broader queer space. You find things that exist in real life and you go, oh my God, how wonderful. You know, it's not just me. I'm not alone in this. It's wonderful to have that sense of community and how important it is to feel fulfilled in your sense of self. Regardless of the particular label that people use, gainer, fetus, it all relatively means the same thing as Tim was saying. It's about intention to gain weight. A lot of people prioritize fat. Some people do muscle, a lot of people do both. It's really just about transforming yourself into the body that is most correctly aligned with how you want to see yourself and how you want to exist in the world. On Tim's point about sexuality, I was very new to it when I realized very quickly that the experience of having gained weight means that I live with this 24/7, not just in the moments when I might be feeling a certain type of way. And so there comes that question of, well, there must be so much more to this experience. There must be everything else, in fact. Yes, it's a sexual thing for me. But what does it do for me emotionally, psychologically? What does it do for me spiritually? All of those moments. And when you take a more holistic approach to it, you realize that there is a lot of beauty and a lot of joy that can come from something like gaining. So it's something that means different things to different people, but ultimately it represents freedom from a lot of the trappings of culture as it comes to bodies. And we're seeing a lot of that these days with the push around things like Ozempic and weight loss, the return to the heroin chic and all of this that we're seeing in the world. Pressures that are put on women to accrue a certain style of body, even though they're pregnant or even though they're hormonal. All of these ridiculous things. It impacts each and every one of us, which is why, as we say, the podcast, yes, it's for our people, our community, but it really is for everyone because no matter what label or identity you use, we're really all of us in the muck trying to deal with what the world's putting on us.
And I think what's really, maybe it seems special, but maybe for your community it's not, but like that you're male voices in this community, because like from a woman coming from this, there's been so much talk, especially growing up in the 90s, where there were so many pressures on female body shape and size. We don't often see the male side or the male perspective from this. And so I think that you are opening up and talking about this from a very closed off group of people. Men aren't typically told to share your feelings,
Or talk about their
describe your
bodies.
emotions, describe your body, right? Like all that kind of stuff is very taboo within
It's
the
considered,
male culture, right?
within the patriarchy, it's considered emasculating to criticize your own body or to say that like you think that you're too much of this or too much or not enough of that. Or now, if you're really shrimpy, you're allowed to complain about that so long as you fix it. But like men are like the definition of men in the patriarchy is that they have to be big in some way.
But certainly the correct ways, because if you think about the ways in which fat tends to aggregate on a body, one of the biggest critiques that are often lobbed at men is the ways in which it feminizes a man's frame. If he gains weight in the chest, he grows breasts. If he gains it in his waist, he grows hips and a big butt. And if his belly grows too big, it starts to hang down like an apron. And when the thighs get too big and there's the cellulite that appears or the bingo wings and all of these references that basically describe the idea of a male body looking more feminine or at the very least more androgynous. So there very much is, for a lot of people who approach weight gain, a question of gender, a question of sexuality and an inherent sense of presentation. A lot of people go through different questioning aspects of who are they now that they approach a body that's more correct for them. It tends to reveal to oneself a lot of the ways in which culture and society just sort of point the finger and go, you're a boy and this is it. And if you don't feel enough of a question, you go, okay, and that's kind of it. But then you go through a transformative process like that and then you go, well, hang on a moment. There's actually so much here. And actually now I'm in a position to maybe question some things and really dig through and be like, well, who am I through this kind of a lens and a context? So there is, as I said before, a lot of opportunity for healing and for deeper understanding of the self through a process like that.
I love that people are having these discussions and talking about this because both Heather and I are moms of boys, and there is a lot of terrible masculinity and terrible male discussions going on. And I'm like, this is on the other side. It's great to hear.
So I was thinking about how you said some people focus on muscle, and that brings to mind the stereotype of like the gym bro, right? Like this steroid pumping, like trying to get bigger, bigger, bigger. And you have this idea in your head or that they're doing it to impress other people. Like it's like an appearance thing that it's like they're trying to be attractive to whoever they're trying to attract, or they're trying to look good in front of the other gym guys, or, there's kind of like, it looks as though it's an outward facing effort. They're not doing it for themselves, but maybe they are. And we didn't really think beyond that physical exterior. maybe it makes them feel good.
And I think you probably find a good mix, like within like men who frequent gyms, they do it for different reasons. And some of them probably are doing it for very superficial. They want to attract a particular looking type of person. But, and then I'd say there's just as many who are doing it for self.
Well, you think about it, a lot of the content you'll see online about gym types who will make content, it's very homoerotic. It's very indicative of like deep, deep connections with the people that they share that particular space in. When people talk about, the quote unquote male loneliness epidemic, which is bullshit, but anyways, it is because men don't have friends. Because patriarchy and masculinity tells you that you're not supposed to have deep, intimate connections with men. These men, for the first time, probably in their entire lives, since they were little boys, are developing good emotional friendships with the men that are around them and developing community. And so it's no wonder that they feel so strongly about it, because they've actually been without for a very long time. And so you see a lot of like, I don't know, when I look at a lot of this content, I see a lot of like childlike joy, and it's healing, and it's very beautiful to get to witness.
That's nice. And on the topic of friendship, how did the two of you meet? You're on different continents. James, you are in the UK by way of Australia, perhaps other places, I don't know. And Tim, you're in the US. So how did you come to meet and start up this podcast together?
So actually, before Thicc Radio, I was doing a podcast on my own. I called it The Gaining Perspective. It was like the pandemic was just about to start, but I had taken up an interest in podcasts, and I knew that I was into this community and had been for like almost 20 years at that point. So I thought, I'm wondering if there is a podcast that talks about my community. And I went looking, and I only found an episode here or there about BBWs and maybe, feeding and eating, but from a more negative point of view, more like a let's examine the freak show kind of thing. So I said, screw it, I'll just do it myself then. I did not realize what a daunting task it is to create a show and keep it running and like be on top of it and be organized. So then James had been over on Instagram, and he had been talking to prominent members of the community on live streams that he called Big Boy Chats. And someone said to him, have you ever thought about turning this into something like a podcast? And then I think that whoever suggested that to him pointed him in my direction, because they knew that I was doing this thing. And so James just slid into my DMs, and he's like, hey, can we have a conversation about this? First time we talked over Zoom, he's like, have you thought about taking on a co-host? And I was like, yes, thank you, God. I don't know how I'm going to do this. So then the Gaining Perspective kind of died in order for Thicc Radio to rise out of its ashes.
I mean, I was nervous messaging you the first time because I'd not really tried to do anything like this before. And I remember very distinctly someone had just posted a very simple comment, this is never going to change, until someone in our community actually ironically bellies up to the table and says, no, I'm going to host conversation. You will take it from us, the truth and reality about the situation. And I was just like, yeah, somebody needs to do that. Who's going to be that? And as someone who doesn't believe in Jesus, the spirit of the universe clapped me across the head. And then I went, I could do that. That sounds fine. So yeah, started doing stuff on Instagram, had a good time doing it, and then heard about Tim's podcast and thought, ooh, I'm going to like slide up in there. I'm going to weasel my way into his life and get into that podcast. And then, as he said, basically threw himself at my feet and said, yes, please, God, like, please take this from my hands. And I just went, okay.
Okay. I'm curious about misconceptions. So you've said a few things. I think you've mentioned a few things along the way, but what would you say is like the key sort of misconceptions that you're trying to correct about your community or your lifestyle? Or
there's a lot.
How much time have you got? How much time do we have? God.
Oh no.
When people hear the word fetish, they immediately think kinky, dirty, unclean, like normal people don't do that. They think we're perverts.
Again, like non-consent. And I think that's one of the biggest pushbacks, because part of what we do on the show as well is we watch all the documentaries, all the shows and episodes of shows where people decide that they wanted to make gaining and feedism the pinata that they be with a stick. And, we review it and we talk about all the ways in which it's poorly done and dishonest and really bad journalism, frankly. Obviously, members of our community want to be shown with respect and dignity, because we're not doing anything that connotes anything less,
Mm-hmm.
So they trust people. And it's very disappointing when people produce something that isn't really any good. So that's something that we do, that we try to push back against. Because, frankly, my dear, the idea of it wouldn't matter how attractive I thought someone was. If I say, oh, I'm into this, do you like this? And they say no, I immediately don't care. I couldn't give a fuck. So, like, the idea of I'm going to dedicate time in my day to try to, like, push you, force you, bullet, like, absolutely ridiculous. So the notion that this is something that everyone is trying to do, very weird and very narcissistic to believe that someone cares enough about you to want to force you to do something.
Something that I always like to push back on is, people think that this particular community is weird and subversive for just wanting to eat good food and, put on some weight in the process. Like, if you think that what we're doing is weird, it's like what we're doing is not that subversive.
The people out here doing all sorts of things. And, like, all I want, a little bit of cake.
But you know what the major difference there is, like James was saying earlier when he said that, we have to wear this on our bodies all the time. That's the thing, is there are many people out there who can be into some really wild out there BDSM kind of stuff, but you'd never know it because they can pack it all away in a suitcase or in a closet and no one has to know. They can go back to doing their 9 to 5. Whereas in our community, you will see the body change. So it's something that we can't just pack away. It's not something we can shove back in a closet.
Yeah, and then you get comments from people who are very caring because in their mind, they look at you. There's no narrative of positive weight gain in this world. It is all bad news, according to society. So I start to put on weight. My family want to make comments. My friends want to make comments. And that's, again, something that people need to navigate, where it's like, I don't feel like I can share with you that this is intentional or that this brings me a certain type of joy because you're my mom. Whoever in my life, I don't feel comfortable telling you about those things because most people don't feel comfortable talking about that kind of stuff, especially with friends and family. But different people approach it in different ways. But it's a reality that whatever extent to which you engage, you've got to be prepared to front up and deal with it because it's going to happen. People have something to say.
And they feel like they've been invited to make a comment or say something to you. They feel like they have that right, or it's their job to make those comments or try to pull you back in line, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it's a very moralistic thing that a lot of people don't talk about, right? Like, within the body experience, the narratives that are approved by society that we put on people. Bodies change, every single one of us, because we age. Every single one of us will age to the point where we become disabled. Eyesight will go, hearing, mind, body access, all of this will change. That's natural. But if you turned around to Nana and said, you're a bad person for being old, go have surgery to fix your, bad parts, you horrible person costing the healthcare, like, that would be insane. And yet, as a society, seems to be perfectly fine to remark on larger people who are just trying to get through the day. Things like that a lot of us don't even question, but is the lived experience for so many people, plus size or not, because also the word fat doesn't mean anything. Like, if you close your eyes and you picture a quote-unquote fat person, guaranteed every single person listening, both of you all, you're going to picture someone completely different. And all of us, like I said, experience the body fascism of your body is imperfect. You must constantly be working to improve your body, to better your body. Don't you want to live longer for your kids? Don't you want to do this? Don't you want to? And it's like, just eat the fucking donut.
Well,
it's a donut.
As queer men, we have the added pressure of what, queer men are expected to look like. Like, we're all expected to be supermodels.
Yeah. And I imagine it sounds like you've heard it from well-meaning family and stuff, but is health a concern for you or for people in your community? Is it a balance between this thing that brings you joy and ensuring that your body is healthy at the same time? Like you say, just eat the donut, which I love donuts too.
Yeah.
But is it is that something that is a concern?
I think it's kind of nuanced because it's different for everybody. Like, there have been people within the community who actually a part of the thrill is the idea of trashing their body, but then there are many others that are more interested in, like, no, I'm going to make this a very long-term thing. I still intend to live into my 70s and my 80s, my 90s. So they're a little bit smarter about look at the journey as a lifelong thing.
Health is hard because ultimately there is no hardline definition that works for everyone. Even between the two of yourselves, what is considered healthy or unhealthy might be vastly different based on your genetic history. You might live in different areas, which means your access to affordable, quote unquote, healthy traditional food might be very, very different. All of these factors contribute to whether or not someone is able to maintain a healthier, quote unquote, lifestyle. And that's before you even get into whether or not someone's gaining, you know? The genetics plays a part, whether or not someone finds it easier or not to gain weight, whether or not eating certain foods will cause them to experience health attractions, whether or not that thing is going to manifest over time. But this happens to every single human. It's not to say that worrying about the health is not really worth it, but as Tim said, it is individualized. The responsibility of an individual should always be, gainer or not, what do I need for health? What matters to me? After all, people who are Olympians punish their bodies a lot of the time to become this epitome of physicality. And as a result, they often wear out faster than other bodies. But we would see an Olympian and someone being a prima ballerina or a world champion powerlifter as a fine thing to achieve. So why should this be any different, you know?
Yeah. Have you found it difficult at all to get used to talking about very personal things on a podcast that could be listened to by the entire world? I mean, we talk about cooking. There's nothing super personal, but it did take time, I feel like, for us to get comfortable.
Yeah.
It's funny. I have just been an open book for quite a while. And I think it's just because of a lot of the things that I went through in my personal life. Long before I met James and before I started my own podcast, I would just go live on Instagram, like late at night. And, so I had to try to engage with my audience in some way. So I'd be like, guys, ask me questions and anything's on the table. If you ask, I'll tell you, but you got to deal with me telling you. Like, that's how I look at it. It's like, if you ask, I will tell you, but I can't guarantee that you're going to enjoy what I have to say.
I think for me, I've not struggled because I think the way that my mind has always worked is that if it is true for me, then it is truth, period. I'm not going to lie about it because I have no desire to, because I don't care about what you think of me. My truth is that this is what is correct for me. But once again, if they ask the question, like, that's on you, babes. Like, if you want to know, I'm going to tell you, but
Are you sure
maybe
this is the question you want to ask? I feel like you talk about being very open about this and finding this community and having it for many years, but I'm assuming that growing up, it took time to find your
Yeah.
people and
Yeah.
find your community and find that space to be in and be like, okay, now I can accept this about myself and now I can start sharing, right? And that,
Yeah. Because the connectivity of it all didn't really happen until the internet boom.
gotcha.
But as I discovered it in the late 90s when the internet came to my house,
I was 12 when I first started searching things online. But it was something that had been in my mind since I was single digits of age, literally. Like cartoons of the 90s. There was always like a random episode where for whatever reason the characters got fat and then they just had to like go on their normal adventure, whatever it was, as these like super round characters bouncing along. And those were obviously my favorite. And I was like, why is this my favorite episode? I don't understand. So I think this is another one of the reasons why I've always held to the idea that gaining for a lot of people transcends sex, because for me, it tapped into something in me from before a time that could have ever have been possible. It was always something that the moment I saw it, I knew that it was for me. So I think it is something that's quite innate to people. But certainly, like, the advent of community and the online space is a life changer. My God. When we interview people and they talk about the experience of first coming in connection with community, it's life changing. It really
Yeah.
is.
And that must be, I mean, that's an important role that you now play within the community as generations and youth come up and start seeking out that validation, that connection. And now they can find that in you, right?
Yeah, and we've talked a lot in the past about mentorship and how we really have a need for it, like, badly. And so our hope is that we are providing that through our podcast. And to kind of link it back to what you asked about talking about things that are so personal. My hope was always that, like, my stories are stupid, but if one of my stupid stories helps you avoid making the same mistake that I did, then I'm glad it helped.
Right.
Yeah, well, we all need to find our people. I mean, we're social creatures and we all want to find some common ground with people who don't think we're the weirdo or the oddball or whatever. We want people to go, really, me too. Like, I like that too.
You can throw out those comments or those ideas and people just accept them and are like, oh yeah. And then you can talk about it without them having to go like, or make a face
What?
at you like,
What are you talking
What?
about?
Which is why it just feeds the soul, like when we get to congregate with each other, because even though like we're not all like best friends, but like having that in common and knowing that we can do that in a shared safe space is like, it's just so liberating.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So we're all about food on our podcast. And I'm curious, okay, so can I say that you are gainers? Is that the
Yes.
right?
Yes, that would
Okay.
be correct.
Okay. So then as gainers, does that change your relationship to food and to eating? And like, I'm assuming there's a calorie counting thing going on. There's a scale thing going on. There's right? Like all these things that kind of tie into food and diet.
Yeah.
Like we kind of talked about health a bit, but like
Yeah.
all those come into your food life.
And again, I would say it's kind of nuanced because there are quite a few people who do the daily calorie counting, and they know how many that they want to hit in a day, and they've already calculated how many they have to hit daily in order to reach a goal by a certain time frame.
Right.
I'm not so much for myself. Like for me, it just means that when I want to eat something, I'm not going to shy away from that, right? And I don't feel embarrassed about maybe eating the entire pint of ice cream, or if someone hasn't finished their dessert when we go out to eat, I'm not embarrassed to say, hey, I'll finish it. Yeah. I was going to say about the scale is there are quite a few people in our community who really love tracking that every chance that they get. They want to know how much they're going up, even if it's by ounces. Someone like myself finds the scale rather triggering because I will step on it and it will not give me the number I want. And then I will get depressed because I will feel like I've put in a lot of effort to try to move you and you're not moving. And this is making me feel like crap.
Ways in which it is very similar to a lot of people who try to lose weight, which is why we often say it's a part of all the same journey. Whether you're going up or down, we all know the struggle of you want to achieve something that you're not achieving. So that's a pain. But when you do achieve it and you feel really good, that's us,
Right.
We're just going in the other direction, baby. But one of the biggest things I've noticed about my own food journey is like the freedom within it. Because I came from a family who we did not have a good relationship with food. Mum was not someone who enjoyed cooking. And in fact, I'm sure we'll talk about this later. The recipe of today is one of the few things that I know that she enjoyed that she passed on. But, that was something I had to really learn about, was a love of food. And what I've noticed is that over the years, a joy in food is a freedom for everyone around you. I find that if I'm the larger person at a friend grouping and we're out to lunch and they go, oh, well, we don't need to look at the dessert. And I say, I'm going to look at the dessert menu, bitch. I already know what I want to pick out. Thank you. And how quickly everybody else folds and they go, well, actually, now that you mention it, I was going to get the sticky date pudding, and it's just, I'm not out here trying to convince you to do anything you don't want to do, but me living in my authenticity, because I'm going to have extra, I'm going to have seconds and dessert. Suddenly a bitch goes, maybe I too shall have the food that I want to have. And it just means that other people get to experience that freedom as well. There's language and emotion attached to food, the idea of a reward or a treat versus a cheat day and being irresponsible, having an affair on our diet, like really dangerous language that it's like, when I gain weight, it is not because I hate my skinny self and want to be the opposite. It's actually because I love myself. So as I gain weight, I feel wonderful, feel more affirmed in my human identity, in my gender, in my sexuality, in my masculinity. It makes me want to live. It makes me want to be in this world more and more and more because I love myself. I choose to love myself and I choose to approach my body in the same methodology. Therefore, my weight gain message and methodology is never going to be bad because it is what is correct for me. Same too with weight loss. So many people choose to lose weight because they've been taught to hate their fat selves. And that is why they choose to lose weight. And that is why they feel unhappy in the weight loss. That is why we see personality shifts with people who lose weight through that same methodology. There's that trope of meanness and unkindness that comes in for some people who lose weight, and anger. And we joke and we say, well, it's because they're hungry, they're not eating. But it's because the truth kernel at the core of that is that they are training themselves to hate themselves and to pursue something through hate. It is a very different story when you pursue it with love. So I will say that on that point.
That's
Beautifully
beautiful.
said. Hey, listener, we're just blown away by the kindness and generosity of our guests on the podcast. They lend us their time and share their knowledge with all of us so we can learn to be better cooks and bakers at home.
If you enjoy our guest episodes, please see their links below in the show notes. Go follow and support them too. And if you have an idea for a guest, please send us a message. We'd love to hear it. Now, let's get back to this episode.
So, since we are a podcast about cooking, we always ask our guest to send us a recipe before the episode that we can try in our kitchens, and then we can talk about it. And the listeners have a recipe to go and try if they so choose. And I think they probably would choose to make this one. James provided the recipe. Can you please tell us what that recipe was and why you chose it?
So it's potato and leek soup. As I expressed, my mother growing up was not someone who really enjoyed cooking. She wasn't someone who, I think, in many ways exhibited a lot of classic maternal attributes, but this was one of them. And I have a very fond memory. I was born in Sydney originally, and I have a very fond memory of one winter somewhere in the mid-90s. I was very, very young enough that I'm sitting in a high chair and the legs are dangling, and like I'm short, so like my hands are kind of like across the table like that. I can't really, you get the spoon like that. Very, very little, very, very young. But I have this memory of like a big steaming bowl of this soup and like having a spoonful and like that sensation of it's cold outside, but like the warm food is like traveling down and then like warming my tummy and I'm feeling like all safe and cuddly. So I've always had a very positive memory attached to the meal. And when I first moved away from Australia, it's something that I started making as one of the like remembrances of home, something that makes me feel attached to family and country and all those things. And obviously it's gone through changes over the years as my personal tastes have shifted. But yeah, it's a recipe that I love, and I love finding a good excuse to whip it out and make a big, massive pot that will last me for an entire calendar week. Fabulous stuff.
Mm-hmm. And it's also easy to make, and you don't have to have any fancy equipment or skills in the kitchen. Like probably why your mom liked to make it if she wasn't really that into cooking, but she knew she could pull this one
Yeah,
off, which is common to
absolutely.
lots of people at home in their kitchen where they're like, I don't feel like cooking today, but I can make this because it's easy. It's relatively inexpensive in terms of ingredients. It's onions, leeks, garlic, potatoes, vegetable broth, cream, and then nutmeg and salt and pepper. Like it's very simple.
Very throw
Um,
together.
yeah, and it just I think is a great example of how the simplest recipes can be the most comforting, you know. And
Definitely.
I made it yesterday, actually. Kind of
Yes. How'd it go?
pushed it to the limit on our timing. And it was minus 20 something here. It was cold, and my kids had like a little snow shoveling job they do in the neighborhood, and I shoved them out the door. Go shovel. You got to go earn your money. And they came back and they were so cold, and the soup was like the perfect thing. And it makes a big pot, like you said.
Yeah, and it's the type of thing too, like when we've got these shorter days and we're not like this is coming out post Christmas, we've all been busting our butts to try and, make the meals and feed the everyone and the cookies and the blah blah blah. Like the last place I kind of want to be is in the kitchen for 3
Mm,
hours again or whatever to make something, but I want something that's going to hug me and feel cozy and yummy. And, if I can jump into the kitchen, whip this up, and everyone is happy and contented with it, it's a win, right? Like, and
I
it's
love that.
easy to do.
Yeah, it's a great recipe. I would say,
Oh,
like in terms of tips, if anybody needs them, carefully wash those leeks. Those things
Mm,
hang on to dirt like you wouldn't
they do.
believe. But the nice thing is you're chopping them up, like put them in a bowl of water, let them soak for a while and get clean. And then you're going to puree the whole thing at the end. So you don't need any fancy knife skills or careful chopping. You can just cut those onions, cut those leeks. In the end, you're just going to whiz it all up anyway. So
hmm
super not fancy, but so good.
Well, I will say, because Tim, can I share? So you were preparing this, and you said, "Actually, James, can I make this with you, like on a call, and you can kind of guide?" And I was like, "Sure, we can absolutely do that." And I love that one of the first things you said was, "So I don't actually have a blender, and I will not be blending it. So this is going to be different." And I was like, "Okay, great. This is
I don't have a hand blender, and I didn't want to pour hot soup into a traditional blender.
Okay.
And that is okay. But then you would ask me questions like, well, what do you think is going to happen here? And I was like, you are quintessentially not making it the way that I make it. So I do not know. We're going to find out together what state it
as a
is in
tip,
upon arrival.
If you don't end up pureeing it at the end, if the potatoes are soft enough, like I started mashing the potatoes like in it, and that like thickened it up.
It's also a good point too if you don't want to use cream. I used lactose-free cream because I have the lactose issues. But if for whatever reason you don't have it or you don't want to use it, there's always that trick of like blending part of the soup or say matching those potatoes and putting it in, which kind of makes it feel creamy. So you don't even have to blend the whole soup if you didn't want to. I'm sure your soup was great, Tim.
No, I mean, it tasted fantastic. It was just a little, it was a little runny because it hadn't been pureed.
And you can put hot soup into a blender. I mean, you might want to let it sit cool just a little,
always
but you
feels
can.
weird to me to put hot soup in a blender. I was like mentally, I'm like, no, this is for ice cream and ice. Like, this is not for hot soup.
Okay. Well, maybe next time you'll try it because you can do that. It's okay.
Erin,
She's
what
not
did you think
breaking
of
any
it?
rules or anything. Erin just ate it for breakfast just before you joined us on the call.
Yeah,
She
I
had
had
a
it for
nice bowl of
breakfast.
soup.
Yeah, it was, I mean, it's all those good warm feelings. Like when you say like you're sitting there and you take a bite and you take it in and it just warms you all the way through. Like, I don't know, that blended soup, it's different than, any other soup that's got the chunks and stuff in it, right? Like maybe that's not the most attractive word to use for it, but like when you've got those blended soups, there's something about it that just, it coats your tummy, it goes all the way down, and it just, like I had it for breakfast this morning and I was like, God, this is so delightful. Like and I have a big serving, so I have a second container that I can warm up again. And I'm like, breakfast again tomorrow? Like, yes, please.
And I will say, like, in terms of reheat, because it's as you say, it's a blended soup, it keeps really, really well. It's very easy over low heat within 5 to 10. It is nice and hot and bubbling, and it is just wonderful. It really is. I have a tendency, I don't blend it until it's like perfectly smooth. I love a little sense of that. It's almost like a porridge texture where it's like it's a little thicker. And I think, chunks, like there is little moments, little pops of things that you get in there as well, which is lovely. I knew someone
like a stew.
Yeah. I knew someone once who what they would do is they would make it, and when they served it, they would actually get like their pepper grinder and set it to the widest settings and crack fresh pepper on top. But at the widest setting, you get like not whole peppercorns, obviously, but you get like actual like slight pieces of peppercorn so that like you would get it and you would bite it and it would get this like pop of pepper. So like there are all sorts of really, I think, fun ways that you can kind of dress it up to be more your particular flavor and style. Like you said about the lactose-free cream, I think there are plenty of people who wouldn't bother even with cream. They just put milk in, if it helps thin it out a little bit and does a little something to it. Or maybe even don't put in dairy at all. You can leave it just as that stage without the cream. It'll probably be just as lovely. Probably a lot thicker. You might need to add more stock or something like that to play with the levels. But I think it's a great base for so much as well.
I love a good cream soup, a good soup and sandwich. Like I'm always, if I'm out somewhere for a meal, I love getting the soup if it's like a homemade soup and not just like a canned soup, because whatever. I love a good soup. And so this checks all my soupy love boxes.
If I were going to bake a bread bowl, I would definitely want to put this soup in it.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Well, I mean, because the perfect accompaniment with this, of course, is like an entire stick of French bread that you cut into huge chunks. And for all the cream and butter you've just used, you're going to slather more butter both sides on that. And then you're going to use that to eat. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is what I mean when I say, like, not even just the gaining side of it, but just like there's a sense of decadence and I'm going to have all the trimmings. And it's just like, yes, 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 give me the whole damn thing. Amazing.
Yeah. And you could like toss croutons on top, or I like bacon with, anything, but with potato and leek. It's like if you have a quiche or you have a potato, like what was that potato pancake that we've made before, Erin? Those Dutch pancakes. Pannenkoeken. Yeah.
Mm.
And so if you did crumbly, like bacon on top of your bowl, I wouldn't put it in the soup because might get soft, but on your bowl
Mm.
when you sit down to eat, that's
Mm.
really yummy. And yeah, like you said, it's a great base and you can do kind of what you like with it.
Mm.
And the best part is you can make the batch, you can make a whole bunch. And my favorite thing is to toss it in mason jars. And if it's not going to get eaten that week, you pop it in the freezer. And then you've got that thing when you're like, today is not the day. Wow, I got this soup. And then you just grab it out, you let it thaw, you come home and you've got like instant meal of warm, cozy, delicious, right? And it's going to satisfy.
Absolutely. For some reason, Heather, when you were talking about bacon bits, my mind went to like a duxelle mushroom situation. Like, like frying off some mushroom. Because whenever I do this, this is what I do. If I get my mushrooms, I will always use a little spray oil. Mushrooms are in the bowl, wash, spray oil, toss them with some thyme. Very simple. Large skillet, upside down, fry them off for about 5 minutes. Don't move them. But like after the 5 minutes, you can start to shaky, get like the browning all over. They start to squeak. That's how you know that they're getting good. Set them off to the side, let them cool, then duxelle them, and they get like really nice and fine. And they are just the perfect addition to, first of all, any kind of meat sauce you want to like add a little flavor base, like it's good. But
Yeah.
now I'm wondering, you do that separate, you do the soup as you're doing it, and then when you add the stock and everything in, you also put like the duxelle mushrooms in. Maybe that helps to like boost the onion flavor, like gives it like a nice round base flavor. I think I'm gonna
That
try that
sounds
next time,
good.
actually.
I think you could even like put some Gruyere cheese on top, like you would a French onion soup, and like
Yes.
pop it in there. Like when you talk about the crunchy bread and the all of that could go really good too, right?
What's the one that people do
Yeah.
where it's like they make like a grilled cheese sandwich, and what do you have? And you have it with like a tomato soup, right? You like dip the
Grilled
whole like
cheese.
Croque monsieur.
yeah. Maybe you do
Yeah.
something similar where it's like instead of doing the French sliced bread with butter, maybe you do the sliced bread, little bit of cheese on top, a little bit under the grill, so you get like that cheesy bread. Dip that in the soup instead.
Mm.
Okay, that
Oh
could
my
be
God,
really
I'm so
nice.
hungry right now. Because we forgot to warn you, this is a hazard of being on Three Kitchens podcast. You end up,
I will.
the end of every episode, we're always like, God, I'm so hungry.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I will literally be heating up more of that soup after this recording. I'm so
Me
ready.
too. Yum. Well, thank you so much for sharing that recipe. And thanks to James' mom out there. I don't know if she'd listen to us here, but if she does, thank you very much for sharing your recipe, passing it down to your son. We all need to have those things that we can pass down to our kids if we have them, and or to our friends. Here you're sharing it with us, and we're sharing it with everyone listening. Go make potato leek soup. It's so good. Okay, well, in the interest of time, I mean, I feel like we could all just chat all day, but let's maybe wrap this up. Can you remind our listeners where to find Thicc Radio podcast and anywhere else that you are hanging out online where they might like to join you?
Of course. Thicc Radio, spelt with 2 C's, the way that God intended it to do so. Thicc Radio. You can find us as a podcast anywhere you get your podcasts on any such podcasting platforms. We are also on YouTube. We have our website at podpage.com/Thicc Radio. And you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, as I say, at Thicc Radio. Come and find us, come hang out with us, and reach out to us if you're curious about what it is that we do. If you want to learn something, please ask questions as you see today. We're more than happy to chat about it. So we'll see you there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, you guys. This has been
Thank
fun.
you.
Thank you so
Yeah, and
much.
thank you for putting all this wonderful positivity out into the world with your podcast and going through those hoops every week to make it happen, because I think you have an important message to share, and I think it needs to be heard.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's very
And
edifying.
we will put links to all of those to your podcast and your social media in the show notes. So listeners, scroll down and click on that and go find James and Tim and check them out. We enjoy listening to it. Aaron and I enjoy listening to Thicc Radio podcast. So anybody out there, you don't have to feel like, oh, that's not my community. Anybody out there will find something interesting, entertaining, can tell you, well, if you don't know by now that these two are fun to listen to talk, then I don't know what you've been doing the past hour or so, but they're a lot of fun and we know you're going to love it. So go check it out.
Thank you, honey. And to that point,
Thank you.
y'all are doing great, sweetie. This is your reminder
Yes.
once again.
You're doing great work. Keep it up. Love it.
And now for the fine print. For links to recipes and many other random things we talked about in this episode, check out the show notes or our website, www.threekitchenspodcast.com. Join us over on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, YouTube, and TikTok to see what we're cooking up next. And if you love the show, tell a friend. Word of mouth is the #1 way people learn about new podcasts. Thank you so much for listening. My phrase this Christmas has been shitters full. Like, sorry.